Ladies and gentlemen, we are back once again. Week 4, the rundown. Dylan is here. Connor is not here. Or maybe Connor has got slightly more attractive. Who knows? But that's not the case. We are joined by Seb Pettican. And if you know him, I may be pronouncing that wrong. How do I pronounce it?
Yeah, you're right. You're right.
Bang. Now, normally I'd say head coach of Brunel, but now the former head coach of Brunel. But just to make him cry early on. But we're going to go through, or we're going to talk about the games that were and the games that will be, because there's some shockers. There's some shockers this week, isn't there, Seb? There's some shockers, specifically in one division that is now ruined.
There was a few, yeah.
There's one division that is now ruined. Oh, Connor is here. I didn't even see Connor. There. He told me his voice was gone. We're joined by Connor as well. Connor, let me hear your gravelly voice.
It's not great. Let's be honest. It's.
Oh Christ! Yeah, it's a bit squeaky.
Bit squeaky. We'll see how much I actually get through, but I'm here.
It's so strange because you're so much softer spoken now. It's great, and it proves that Dylan's the only one who isn't enjoying a beverage. So, realistically, as we're now on Spotify, I'm going to ask us to introduce ourselves once again. Starting with me, I'm Tebbs, rundown, Sport Tank, Gloucestershire, Lincoln, master's degree. Everyone else, Dylan.
I'm Dylan. I'm the right-hand kick returner at Oklahoma State.
Yep, Connor.
I mean, I'm Willy fucking Wonka, if that's true. So,
yeah, cool. Seb, who are you?
I'm a disgruntled Seb. That's what I'll go with.
God, disgruntled Seb. That's the worst kind of Seb. So, before we get into just grilling Seb about just why he's got a hat on and he's not going to show his hair, we're gonna get into we're just gonna go down the score posts for this week. So in the Prem, the UE Bullets 86, UEA Pirates 0, Cardiff 0, Birmingham 20, Leeds Beckett 48, Durham 0, Stirling 8, Newcastle 26. Div 1, Kent 17, Imperial 14, Hertfordshire 44, Oxford 12, LJMU 20, MMU 16. Do you know anything about that, Connor?
I know quite a fucking lot about that.
Okay. Hallam 51, Manchester 34, Brunel 29, Essex 30. Do you know anything about that, Seb?
I know quite a lot about that too.
Okay, cool. Coventry 21, Staffordshire 0, Portsmouth 35, Bournemouth 35, Swansea 8, Portsmouth 29, Sussex 0, Bristol 19, Southampton 0, Northumbria 0, Leeds 27, ARU 32. This is Div 2 now. ARU 32, DMU 11, Surrey 32, Oxford Brooks 30, Bath Spa 6, Worcester 0, Reading 20, Chichester 7, York 14, Edgehill 0, Lincoln no. UCLan 27, Bradford 0, Lincoln 20, Kiel 6, Greenwich 40, Kingston 0. So, who wants to talk about their weekend? That's what this stream is now. It's how was your weekend?
Yeah, I mean, the only thing I will say, and this is the only thing I'm going to say in the matter, is both us and LGMU's coaching staff agreed it is the worst refereeing performance we have seen at Uniball in a long, long time.
God, I sort of want to press that, but I know that I can't because you are an active coach. But
it's one of those ones where don't worry because the review from that little piece of paper that we were given is going to do the talking.
But yeah, it's going to do literally nothing. But there's nothing we can do about it. And to be fair, they were bad for both sides, and it's a difficult one. I mean, the only other thing I will say is I genuinely think Northern 1 will be all the way for all of the teams will be really interesting.
So hold on. So do coaches have to fill out a review for the referees after the game? I didn't know that.
Yeah,
normally.
Yeah, we can send footage and stuff.
Yeah. So the head ref will normally come over to the head coach. We'll give you a breakdown of the refs and their responsibilities for the game, and you can grade them on their performance, and then basically any kind of thing that you raise as a coach on the sideline, you can basically highlight in film and say, this is when I came up to you and said, that's not safe, or that's a hold, or and it gives them the perspective of actually being able to see their mistake in real time, which actually, as much as, I mean, we can all attest to having refs that just are awful, or that player safety is not at the forefront of what they're trying to do and everything like that. But if no one sends them film or feedback, it's never going to impact the overall ability of the refs. If refs are allowed to just make bullshit calls and things like that, it's never going to be something that's going to benefit the Britball community.
It's one of those things where, despite spending I think it's the majority of my life now playing Uniball, I never knew that, and that makes me feel better actually about refereeing, because it's more so in my time. The referee problem has been when we don't have referees, and then it's a coach from either sideline or coaches from either sideline calling it. I'm looking specifically at one team, a team that's in Leicester, a team that doesn't get along with the rules. Connor, do you know what I'm talking about?
I mean, I don't, but I can name you 4 or 5 teams, but it's the way it works.
Sounds like DMU.
Unfortunately. And
it sounds like DMU. That's strange.
Sorry.
Because it is.
That's fair enough. Well done, Seb. I was trying to skirt around it, but you just.
No, to be fair,
I'm here for carnage. So it's all good.
I feel like we're a bit too quiet on this show. Get me talking about the Div 2 South, Div 2 Southwest, and the fucking bath spot. So
get the names right this time. Yeah, get them the right way round.
Oh. Sam Kimbrough, I was going to shout you out last week. Aberystwyth, he got 2 picks against Gloucestershire, but I don't know how I know that because I don't play Uniball anymore.
Maybe you're just watching.
I was just watching. I drove all the way from Coventry to Gloucestershire, so we've sort of got to get into the big scores here. I feel like we don't need to talk too much about Bullets versus Pirates. Anyone surprised?
You know what? I was actually watching the game, and I mean, obviously, I know quite a few of the guys for the Bullets. I know a lot of the coaches and a lot of the players, and obviously, Brunel were able to go up and scrimmage them, and we were able to kind of get a taste of what it's like up there. And I mean, I was, I think, 4 minutes late to join in the stream on YouTube, and it was 14-0. And I was like, okay. And I think, they're just they're a very good team. They got some very good players, but at the end of the day, they're in a position to be able to do what they need to do, and they do it very well, and they do it very smart. So we're not surprised by the score, but also for a team that kind of knows what the outcome's going to be based off of the game that you've seen them play against Cardiff. We've played Cardiff twice, we've beaten Cardiff twice, but how do you prepare for a game like that? It's pretty difficult. So fair play to UEA for kind of turning up as well.
Here's a question kind of for Seb, but just to throw it out there. How much do you think UE care about the eye test? You look at college football, the way that it works, and how you kind of have to, teams that there have to pass an eye test to get into the college football playoff. That's not really the case here. Do you think UE give a toss about running the score up? Is it more just about getting guys down the depth chart, game time? What is it?
I mean, from like my own kind of thing, and what they're trying to do is, obviously, don't get me wrong, you got their starters, and we saw it kind of in the championship game where like we would be the same in kind of any situation of a close game where we want our best players on the football field. We want our best players doing what they do. And UE are very much like that. But when you've got the kind of level of caliber that they have, you are able to try different things out. And it's a lot more kind of experimental. And it's one of those things where when it comes, we know that it's the regular season. We know how powerful UE are, right? But from a coach's perspective, if you know what you have, it's a time where the regular season is you do your job to get to the certain point, right? Perfect. And then you're able to actually try things out. You're able to try certain plays on third and fourth down. Yeah, like you're able to, you open that because the guys are going to get reps. But also, when it comes down to that playoff final where you're in a fourth down situation against a team that, if you look at the game last year, Nottingham are a fantastically coached program. They're arguably, if you look at the two programs in their own way, they're powerhouses, right? But in a situation where that could come out because you've actually tried and tested it, it's going to be something that's unexpected. So I think they want to go for a win. They also want to make statements because that's the kind of program that they are. And if I was in that situation, I would do the same damn thing, because I think momentum and statement performances speak a lot louder than, like what everyone really wants to talk about is, oh, there's Americans here. It takes away from actually what they're doing. So yeah, that would be my 2 cents on it.
Yeah, fair. No, it's interesting.
But then-
it is really interesting.
But then would you say that, like, going down the depth chart, when they've got the sort of level of competition that they have now with SGS, that maybe not having those starters play a full game is more damaging when in a month's time they've got a game which, if you listen to Connor, potentially there's not going to be much in it for, or there's going to be, it's going to be more difficult for the Bullets than everyone else.
You know what? And I think when you look at kind of like the North Prem and you look at the teams that are kind of there, you look at what Leeds Beckett are doing, you look at what Notts are doing, that's going to be a game that I'm going to want to watch. And I think SGS is going to be the only, I'm going to say a challenge, because having played against SGS, they're a very, very well drilled football team. And, I have a lot of respect for them because of what they do, in the position that they're in, and I know there's a lot of other opinions on that. But I'm not trying to hurt too many egos tonight. But with what they do, they play fucking football well. They're well drilled and they have some very good players. But in that situation, I think from a position where we're 64 points up at halftime against UEA, we're however many points up against Cardiff, what benefit are you giving? Like, it's football. Like, I mean, if we watch the NFL, Sterling Shepherd goes down with a season-ending injury jogging down the field. Like, anything can happen. So why risk it when it's not going to benefit them? And from, kind of conversations, like, I know the DC, like, I've played with him, and the competition that they're having at training is going to be far more beneficial to, than a game, realistically, until that SGS. That's going to be the game that is going to be a good watch. But
it's the same as it's the old adage of iron sharpens iron. When you're at that level, you want to, it's the if you can make those practices more intense than a game, then as a coach, you've won.
You're winning.
Do you think? Yeah. Do you think when it comes to SGS, you've got SGS Bullets and you've got Notts against Leeds Carnegie? Are they the two epitomes of players versus plays in Uniball, in terms of the whole scholarship argument, etc?
I genuinely think if you look at each individual, they're their own entity. They don't share the same models. They don't share the same thing. But I think, it's one of these arguments where we can all sit here and talk a load of shit about they're ruining the sport for us. They're doing this, they're doing that.
What do you mean? What do you mean we can sit here and talk that? We don't say that.
I'm saying everyone in general. People that are watching this, people that comment on everything that Sport Tank put out. Realistically, the only reason that people put out a lot of hate towards it is because they're not in a position or know how to develop that. And it's not about, I think with the four of them, they're completely different in every single aspect of what they do and how they do it. And instead of like arguing, I think what you do is you ask the right questions and see how you can adapt that in your own university, because we can all complain about the people at the top, but if you're not willing to try and actually figure out what makes them what they are, you're never going to be able to even be in a position to compete.
So actually, I was going to ask this question later, but we had this discussion. We've had this discussion over the last, I think, every show it's come up. The concept of the Super Prem. Like, how do you feel about that? Like, obviously, like within what, like Brunel, I know that you got people in. You didn't get Americans in, but you recruited from other colleges, or not colleges, universities. Do you think like that is something that is going to have to be implemented more if this concept of the Super Prem is going to be is a real idea? I know that it's not something that Bucks have talked about or Baffa have talked about. It's something that we've talked about, but it's just interesting to gauge other people's reactions to it.
I mean, for me, I was very much in the thing where it's like, right, there are programs that are doing things very right, and there's a reason that they're the most talked about teams. So if you can take a step back and actually, visualize what they're building, how they're doing it, and every single one of these guys, Dale at Beckett, Dan, Frankie at UE. I've had multiple conversations with Ben Herod at SGS as well, and the same with Jason Scott. And they're not Stonewall statues that aren't going to speak to people. They actually just want their program to be the best. That's what their goal is. And you'd be a fool to think that if you want to compete, you have to stop arguing about why they're so good and actually start figuring out how you can try to get there. It's not about being a Knots or a Leeds or a UE. It's about actually developing the systems and the things in place to actually do that. And it's something that I was working on at Brunel, was that creating that relationship, the link between the university, the SU, and the team. And in terms of like players coming over, that was something that they were already looking at. It's not like I went to that person and was like, screw that team, come over here. Like it wasn't anything like that. They approached, kind of our staff, coaches on our staff, and were like, look, like we're looking at transferring to Brunel. Can we have a couple of conversations about, what we want, like what the program's about and things like that. And I think, it was definitely a step in the right direction in terms of like, we were in a position, a couple of years ago where we were doing what every other university does, in the sense of it's fresh as fair, it's some good social media, but then that's pretty much it. Because, like there wasn't that level of understanding under how Brunel offered scholarships or what kind of avenues we could look at and explore to potentially be able to entice like Americans to come over to the university. We always got kind of lucky because of certain courses at Brunel. And I know that's one of the things as well that Leeds Beckett can really offer, is because they have that, wealth of courses, the same as the others. And I think, the Super League, it's a great concept, but I think it takes away what the actual...
Is it a great concept? Like
I think it's a great concept in theory, but I think it takes away a lot more from the actual sport at university level than it provides.
Yeah,
but I think it draws more attention to it.
The thing, if you look at all of the other sports, you have the Bucks Super League for rugby, you have like Super Leagues for, those top teams. So you can still have the Premiership, and then you can have the Bucks Super League, which, if you look at actually Bucks sport in general, that's a regular thing that actually occurs. And there is those leagues, in terms of rugby, you've got, Cardiff Met, you have all of these big programs, and we look at it in a different sense, but it's already there. I don't know.
I'm not necessarily talking about from a structural standpoint. I think I'm more talking from an overall Uniball standpoint, because to me, you've talked there about, this idea of there being, people, the preparation and UE trying to make a statement, etc. But you take that out, you take them away, you take Knots away, we presume we're talking kind of about what's left. Like the idea was actually, do you know what? Yeah, do you know what? Cardiff got blown out by 90 by UE, but they then went in the week after and put in a really good performance against half the Barring Alliance side. In a Super Prem situation, they don't get to do that.
Yeah.
And to me, I think having that idea of the Super Prem pulls the talent away from the rest, so you don't get to see how that all works.
See, I'd say the other games in the Prem this week are more testament to the fact that actually just how far ahead UE, Leeds and such are, because we spoke about Cardiff and Stirling, and pretty much ruled both, or somewhat ruled both of them out, and they've both they've not been destroyed, either of them this week. But that's two matches which don't involve one of like sort of the big four. It's hard if we could get like sort of a player from one of those teams on, because I'd be intrigued to know if they genuinely like going to UE and seeing the standard and playing against that and being blown out the way they are. Because I think, let's be honest, you could go on any given day. The whole point of that top league is Stirling have a few good sort of scores, same with Cardiff, and you could, who knows, Cardiff could be Birmingham on any given day. That doesn't happen with the top four at the moment.
Yeah. And for me, I think, the big thing, like what you've said, is also like it would take away that kind of talent. But I think if you actually look at the situation right now, if you look at like what's going on with Birmingham, UEA, maybe a little bit less UEA, from like conversations, you then look at the others, like Cardiff, they've actually all kind of fallen short with what happens to Uni. Is that whole premise of Uniball. If you don't have a good recruitment class, if you don't have, like certain things happen out of a team's control and players graduate, if you aren't necessarily prepared for that, it really can come and bite you in the ass. So it is like, it's a double-edged sword in a sense, I think. But I also kind of agree with you, Connor.
So with that, gonna move down the card, because we've only talked about one game so far. It's been 20 minutes, one game. Unbelievable. So we will move on to Div 1, especially Amalak's has already commented, and we will get onto this one. Don't you worry. But I just need to talk about going to Explosion for the first time. When Birmingham said to me that they have a crowd of hundreds, they said even thousands. Obviously, I was like, yeah, of course you do. No, they did. It was nothing like I've ever seen before at a British American football level. Crowd stayed throughout the whole game. I'm sure some of them didn't know the rules. There was lots of having to hype up the crowd, but just that amount of people, just madness. And then fireworks. Some guy had a flare. I mean, the commentator got called for unsportsmanlike conduct at one point. It was fantastic. The game, I expected Birmingham to do a bit better. Because I got there late because I couldn't find parking, if you couldn't believe it. I sent a picture to Connor and Dylan, and I parked at a place and it was like 15 quid for 2 hours. I couldn't believe it. So Cardiff, very, very, they let me in. So I was still on their sideline. I got chatting with the guy who runs their social media, and he's like, yeah, we're down to our 4th string QB and our 3rd string running back. And like, there were points in the game where Cardiff didn't look bad. Like, they were in the red zone twice, but they just couldn't convert. And apparently that has been a problem for Cardiff. But realistically, 20 points, I thought Birmingham would do better, if I'm completely honest. But the event was absolutely amazing, phenomenal. I couldn't believe it.
You spoke very highly of the cheerleaders, if I remember.
That's not what I said at all.
That's not what I said. That's not what I said. Incredible was the word that came in.
No, it was good. The cheerleaders were good, but it was once they were on the opposite sideline. It was more so like, even looking at them performing, I think I tore my ACL. It was mad. Just looking at them, like I was like, oh, my knees. Obviously, I'm not going to be a cheerleader. I'm 6'2" and like morbidly obese, so it was never in my it was never in my line. My parents didn't pass down the right genes for that one. So moving on to Div 1. Now this is where it gets interesting, because not too many surprises, apart from, though there's 3 and 2 of them do involve people who are in this chat. Well, not involve, especially for you, Seb, but let's start with the one that doesn't involve anyone. Kent versus Imperial. I don't understand how they've done. I don't understand how Kent have won that. So Kent won 17-14 over Imperial. Like, Imperial's squad size last year was small, but given the game between Kent and Brunel, it just didn't seem that Kent was on the same level as everyone else in that division. Turns out I'm wrong. There you go.
7.
There you go. So yeah, but yeah, go on.
It was an interesting one. I know from like what I've heard, Imperial pulled out to a lead, and then Kent scored two touchdowns. They like I think the last drive of the game, they drove like 80 yards in 2 plays. So I don't know if they were missing a couple of players coming into Brunel, or they were missing a coach. I don't know. You know, anything can happen. That was a big shot.
Yeah, that division's been thrown on its head. I'm looking at it now, and every single team in it currently has a 0.5 win percentage.
Each team has beaten the next, so it's literally Brunel beat Kent beat Imperial beat Queen Mary, Queen Mary beat Essex beat Brunel.
It's a case of who's going to stand up and be counted.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Tebbs, you're muted. I died
Yeah,
again.
be
Right,
good.
Great.
Well, sorry, I was too busy having a drink. Sorry, guys. But yeah, it just seems that like we've now learned nothing from that division. We're on week 4 now, and we've learned nothing. We know nothing about that division. Congratulations, guys. So we're going to move on to the next one, because we'll save Brunel versus Essex, because I feel like that one's sort of the main event of what? How? So LJMU versus MMU. I had MMU. If there's one thing that I think LJMU are better than I thought they'd be. Yeah, I'm really surprised, especially coming out of that week 2 draw with the Sabres. It just appears that LJMU have, they've got pep in their step. They're ready to go, and they've beat MMU, who I thought were gonna go up to Div 1 and do some bits. I'm sure Connor would agree, but
yeah, I've got lots to say, but I probably shouldn't.
You can say a little bit. Like, don't say anything too offensive, and I think you'll be all right.
It's not offensive. To be fair as well, JMU, they played really well. But we shot ourselves in the foot. We had two of their one of their touchdowns was a decent 65-yard drive. Two of them, the other 2 touchdown drives started on the 12 and the 6. One from a botched punt and one from a pick from our QB. So it's a difficult one. Like, they played really well. They played hard. And then we botched a 2-minute drill. On the way down, we started on 10. We were on the 10, tried to fight the ball, and the clock expired. So it is what it is, and I think that we play them again in 2 weeks, and it'll be really interesting. I'm really looking forward to seeing what we can do and how we can improve. We've got Sheffield this weekend, and yeah, I mean, the guys are our players. We have a to pull behind the curtain. We have a completely rookie offensive line. None of them before this year had ever taken a Uniball snap and ever taken an American football snap. So, like, for them to go out and play the way they did was fucking incredible. Yeah, we had a guy playing who we've just moved to running back who balled out. We had 2 kickoff return touchdowns called back, 4 blocks in the back. One was skeptical. One was unfortunately very obvious. So it is what it is. But yeah, I when I said that this division is going to be really interesting, I'm really excited for all of our games this year, because I think they will all be close.
And then sort of with that, we will move on. See, this is it. It's such a sort of talk people comment. And I'm like, we'll get to that. Brunel, 29. Essex, 30.
Seb?
When I saw, let me just so what happens when I saw that, I was like, what? Obviously Brunel lost their head coach. It's strange to say that when he's sort of in the room with you, but they have, and it just appears that it's easy to create narratives and say, well, their head coach is gone. Of course, this is how it works. This is how it works. But Seb, as someone who was there, what is your take on Brunel losing to the Essex Blades?
And it's going to be very similar to kind of Connor, and the one thing that I will do is I'll take my hat off to Essex. They were 21-0 down at the half. They just rode that momentum wave. And I'm pretty sure, I think Brunel scored first coming out of the half and took it to 29 and Essex went on to, put up 30 and unanswered points. And, some of those scores came off costly turnovers kind of in that period where, you're inside the 20 or the 30. And, there was some costly fumbles. There was missed assignments on both sides. Couple of blown coverages because of the play style of Essex. And it was a good game. It was a great game to watch. And, I, for one, it upset me watching it and seeing that outcome. And, obviously with what has been done and what has happened, it obviously kind of sucks because, the guys deserve to win. But Essex were the best, from my opinion, Essex just put in one hell of a shift in that second half. You could say Brunel won the first and Essex won the second, but with a bigger statement. So I take my hat off to them as well.
That final score that matters, isn't it? Unfortunately, it's the way that it works.
Exactly.
Like you think you put a shift in the first half, you go into halftime bouncing. If you're not the team that comes out firing, you're going to struggle. And
yeah, and the Essex capitalized on those mistakes, and that's really where it fell down. It was it was costly turnovers in difficult positions for a defense to stop. So. And it's like, it's one of those things, like you said, Tebbs, there's no narrative needed here. It was just a football game. That was what happened there.
And it's interesting, like even sat here doing the rankings that were posted earlier, people will look at it. It's the first time I've not ranked Brunel. Like it's one of those things where I didn't see it happening, like Leeds are now number one for me. They're 3-0. They just beat Northumbria 27-0, and it's strange because like Brunel were floating around at the top, and it's just not there anymore. I will say though, another team that has impressed me before we sort of move on, Bournemouth. I've had to now issue a written apology to Bournemouth because I didn't think they'd be this good in Div 1, and it turns out that. They are. Turns out that they are good. Defeating Swansea 35-8. Obviously, Swansea are struggling, and it's going to be interesting to see if their descent into Div 2 continues. But
they're going backwards for now. Unfortunately, bless them.
They are.
It's a struggle.
I know
you got to feel for them as well.
Yeah, I mean, we scrimmaged with them, before the season, and they got some really good guys down there. But they picked up a couple of injuries in the scrimmage, and it's kind of sad to see. You never want to see a team come from the Premier, like the top flight, and slide all the way back down to the to Div 2. And hopefully they can turn it around. They got a good coaching staff, they got some very good players, but you need to be able to put it together for a season. And if you can't get it to click, it can be a very frustrating long ride.
Then I'm just going to add this one in just because someone said last week, if you remember, Connor, someone said Sussex to win the South. Sussex to win the South, and what was it, 29-0 to Portsmouth? Just gonna put that out there.
You do like a bit of Portsmouth, Seb, don't you?
Well, I have to now because after last year, if I don't like Portsmouth, then. Again, I'm worried Portsmouth will come for me. They'll come for me, and we're going to go back to
the list of teams that are coming after you is getting longer by the day, dude.
Oh, it is. It is. This is back to Seb knows this question. Apparently, this is now a question that we used to get.
It's all the time. It's definitely probably Blue Raz.
It is Blue Raz, yeah. I was
Yeah.
having a stressful day. I wanted one. There you go.
Yep.
Don't. There's like 2 John McIntyres that are
At least it's
asking.
not. At least it's not peach this time.
Oh
you know?
yeah, I don't know why I got so much
Strawberry
hate for
banana.
Peach. I don't know
It
why I
was
got so
peach
much
and
hate.
strawberry banana. That was where you got hate. Yeah.
Well, to be fair, Connor, there's like to be fair, if I remember correctly, Iab was the guy last year who said, why don't you come to a playoff game? Or like, okay, if we come to our next playoff game then. And I was like, yeah, fine. And then I did. I believe it was Iab. Again, nothing else in Div 2 really strikes a fancy to talk about. Sorry, Div 1. Div 2, however, again, not too much. The only one that I'd say is worth chat about is ARU 32.
That shocked me.
DMU 11.
This one. This
Yeah, that's
I actually.
massive.
But coming off a 40-0 loss against Nottingham Green, and
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know if you saw there was an Instagram video that got put out
Yes.
from a DMU player
I saw that one.
talking about Nottingham Green has a load of goal players, which for one is just a load of rubbish.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, physically, it's not possible. Like with the way that Bucks work and Baffle work, it's not. You can't do it.
No,
but
it's
fine.
not. They have, different coaching staff, and don't get me wrong, like Notts Gold will play scout for Notts Green, and they will run a full scout session and things like that. But that was a really interesting game to see ARU. I mean, we played them last year, and it was one of those really sad things to see. They had a fantastic season, which brought them up into Div 1, and because of graduation, they lost players, and it was kind of sad to see them go down without being able to put up much of a fight. And I think they gave up 3 walkovers, and so it's good to see them coming back and see that they've recruited some players as well.
It was just it was just, again, it's coming off a 40-0 loss, but it's why in the rankings, despite Nottingham Green not playing this week, I bumped them up because I'm now worried about Nottingham Green. I'll tell you that now. I think that they are legit scary, not just, they're Nottingham second. No, I think Nottingham Green are legit now. I think they're legit.
They're not just the little brother.
Yeah,
100%.
Little brother. They're now kind of making their own kind of name, which I think it's good to see.
Is that so? Am I right in saying that's ARU's first win as the Siege?
Yes, that's their first win as the Siege, and it's also their first win in nearly a year. I would say.
Yeah.
So it's a really big game for them, and fair play to him. Yeah.
Yeah. Toppling, kind of big dog, as it were.
The big one as well that shocked me was the OBU Panthers.
I got slated for guessing them last week.
Oh well. Well, here's the thing: is that I think I said this to Seb before we started. People are going to have a go at me for picking whatever, but no pundit picks 100% all the time, or otherwise they'd be spoilers and not picks. So I believe I got 11 out of 16 correct this week, which, truth be told, is really good. And you would not believe this, guys. It appears we're going back to the first rundown when this happened. I'm actually having a nosebleed. So
right,
I'm just gonna.
You go and do that. You go and deal with that.
Yeah. Someone vamp. Oh no, I've got a rag. Here.
I will. Right. Well, let's look at some of the scores then. Let's look at.
I'm gonna mute myself, guys. I do apologise.
Good man. The one that's kind of rolling across the screen there. UClan 27, Bradford Bears 0, and York Centurions 14, Edge Hill Vikings 0. Now, Liverpool look in that division. Liverpool look like the team to beat, don't they? I mean, that's what it's looking like. And UClan and York kind of vying for that spot to really take on Liverpool and put up some kind of a fight before they kind of get before their coronation, as it were. So, what do we think about that? What do we think about those things? I will premise actually the York score. I'm really good friends with the York head coach. I used to coach there, obviously. The 14-0. So it was a massively shortened game. So the the medical car was late, and they were playing on a grass field with no floodlights. So they ended up playing 10-minute rolling quarters. So it was a very quick game. So I wouldn't. To me, I don't put too. Yeah, pretty much blink of an eye game type of thing there. So it's hard to read too much into that. But I mean, Bradford Bears, they didn't finish their fixtures last year. They really struggled last year. UClan, they went into YSJ and blew the back doors off them. And then they go to Bradford, and to me, 27-0, not necessarily as impressive as I think they might have hoped.
No, UClan. I think York coming back down versus Liverpool sort of going up. I hate to say it, I just don't. You just get the feeling that if any team's going to have a horrendous sort of loss and manage to miss out on getting promoted, Liverpool have a track record for it. I don't think it's going to happen.
Yeah,
but you just never know.
Yeah, and it's also. Go on, Tebbs, go on, man.
Well, the thing is that game is this Sunday. It's York versus Liverpool.
There you go.
So, sorry, Seb, go on.
I mean, it's one of those things as well. We look at, how long have Liverpool been saying, they should be in Div 1. And I mean, I remember a conversation last year about it, and, they pretty much steamrolled the division and got to playoffs and got knocked out, or the way that Div 2
beat them in the regular season.
And then lost in the playoffs, isn't it?
Because that's the way that Div 2 works. It's the way that
you have to
playoffs don't
win the
matter.
league.
Yeah. So Seb doesn't know. He's been in Div 1 too long.
It's been a while. I think it's about five or so years. I think we left Div 2 in 2015. So that was when I was playing. So
it's
the best division.
It's the way that
it's
it
the
works.
Competitive division.
It's hard, but it is hard, and that's we kind of lots of people look at the playoff results and go, oh, Liverpool then steamrolled it and won the whole thing. Were they unlucky in the regular season? Now we played them and we ended up playing them again in the playoffs, and we had guys out. Playoffs happen; they don't really mean much. Guys go away, things like that. But it's unfortunate for Liverpool in the way that. But the way that you beat them on the field, you beat them
different.
It's a one and done. It's a Div 1, Div 2 is a one and done. You get one loss more often than not. That's you.
That's it. Yeah. I mean, and even the biggest thing for me though is Liverpool have been they've been in that situation for the last 2 seasons, right? So you look at the kind of squad that they have, I mean, I watched the Div 2 stream and you look at the guys that they've got, but some of them are going to be graduating now. So realistically, if this is the year that they get to Div 1, what's going to happen kind of with that big step up? Is it going to be the same Liverpool, or is it going to be that, kind of returning cycle? That's the big question.
It's a big question. That's the same with us this year. Is that we lost? And like you say, you've mentioned it a couple of times. It's Uniball. It's the way that it works. You lose players, and then some team can come out of nowhere and win the whole thing with one good recruiting class.
Yeah.
But then you look at York, you seem to have done the opposite.
When you say the opposite, what do you mean?
As in they've sort of dropped down, and yet seem to be playing quite well, and rather than going.
Yeah, it's a difficult one. York are the yo-yo side. They went up and they came straight back down. You look at their records last year, and they were tight. They had some close games, but they ended up bouncing down. And actually, I think they've been really unlucky in the way that the lines have been drawn, because I think if you put them in the Scotland division where they were last year and the year before, when the year they went up, I think they steamroll it, but it's the way that they've been drawn, and it's hard work.
You like that, Dylan?
Sorry, Dylan.
Yeah.
So Simon Myers does have a question.
Were the only, in fairness, sorry, just to add really quickly, Harriet Watt were the only side to beat us the year that York went up.
It doesn't matter because I played for Oklahoma State, but
beat us 9-8. So yeah.
Yeah.
He just
Yeah,
he
the
just
1 point games.
he just supports Harriet. What?
Huge
So,
Harry
Michael,
fan.
are Oxford Lancers actually that bad, or is everyone in that division good?
That division is stacked. There's no.
Both.
Yeah,
both.
it's not a friendly division.
They did what they needed to do to get up. You know, they won their regular division. It's again that same kind of conversation we just had. You know, like Greenwich beat them in the playoffs, but Greenwich is still in Div 2, and I think Oxford are a good team, but I just think they're playing better opponents, and I think that is just a very good division. I mean,
who goes up? If you think about that division right now, who goes up?
Oh, good question. For me, I'm gonna say sorry, Portsmouth. I'm gonna say Hertfordshire.
Ooh.
I'm gonna say Hertfordshire.
I would definitely say it's definitely between Portsmouth or Hertfordshire. I just don't. Whenever I watch I see the Royal Holloway scores, I'm never convinced that they have an offense that's going to actually do something against a team that could put, like this, the first time Hertfordshire didn't put up a scoreline like that all of last year, and to see them put up 44 points after a win against Royal Holloway as well, I think it's Hertfordshire's to take. I know a lot of the guys that they've got some very talented players. So
yeah,
I think it's a shame for Oxford to have been put in a division like that, where you've got guys that are finding their feet in the sport, and it looks like Hertfordshire are clicking. So I think it'll be between Portsmouth and Hertfordshire that will top that.
But I mean, even for like Oxford at the bottom of the sort of ladder, like we can't really count out Sussex anymore because like they did win their week 1 game relatively convincingly. Obviously lost to Portsmouth this week, but it just seems as though that Sussex can Oxford like topple Sussex enough to stay there. I'm not entirely sure.
It's also one of the benefits of having 2 fixtures. If you have a coaching staff that can really kind of drill down, I think that's one of the biggest things that really kind of sets, like, where if you look at like Hertfordshire, some of the coaches that they've got now, you've got Chad that came out of the ELF this year. They've got a couple of new coaches, and it seems like it's working. So if you've got a coaching staff that can, kind of really set up a game plan that works.
I think that's the biggest difference when you move from Div 2 to Div 1. Is because you've those return fixtures, the coaching becomes so much more important.
Yeah. The adaptability and the game planning side of things, I agree.
So we've got one more question, and then we're going to go on to the week 5s. Sterling Newcastle. What were people's thoughts? Was anyone surprised? No,
I wasn't. But I'm sad. I'm surprised and sad. I think it's the end of. I think it pretty much spells the end of Klansman era. In terms of them being the side that everybody remembers.
Yeah. I mean, they won the national championship how many years ago? A couple of years ago. It's a sad time, because they've been in that position for a long time, and it's also one of those things where you get caught out. But I mean, fair play to Newcastle. The new team up. It's got to be a good confidence boost for them, because they got some tough competition to go up against. Be interesting to see, have Durham played them yet? Newcastle.
Don't believe so. I don't believe so.
Yeah, no.
So that'll be a good fixture to really see.
Yeah, that'll be a really good game.
Because obviously we know that Notts Gold and Leeds Beckett, I mean, what Mariota's doing, it seems so weird.
Ridiculous
to
say that.
I love saying
Like,
it.
you got
It's
Mariota.
so
I
good.
mean, I didn't know where they were going to use him, and they've put him at quarterback, and he's really kind of elevated that. And it seems like
I'm right in saying he's not. He didn't come over as a quarterback.
No,
I believe he came
no.
over as a
So
linebacker.
he
No?
played. So he played
Linebacker,
as
receiver, tight end type thing.
linebacker, tight ends, and a specialist for Oregon. Really,
Yeah.
in terms of like a lot of his film, it was predominantly kind of special teams and kind of blowout games. But it doesn't matter, like if you can come and like if you got a ball in your hands from when you're a baby, like you can probably sling a spiral quicker than further than Tebbs could throw a hot dog or something. Like
Not very far.
no,
Throw it down my
it's
fucking
already
gullet, maybe.
gone, yeah.
There
But like
was-
if he's around football, that he's just going to make plays, and
Yeah.
it seems like it's working for Leeds. So I think that Durham Newcastle game is going to be a real juicy one to watch.
Yeah, there's a video on Beckett's social media of him running. I think it's a 60-odd yard rushing touchdown, and it's pure QB draw. It's literally just drops back, the C's part, and he's gone, just completely gone. So, yeah.
And the one thing about Leeds as well is, like, up until Notts, they were the only team to put a score on Uwe. So, that offensive line for Leeds is very, very strong too. So I'm excited to say there's two games. I guess you got two ends of the spectrum. You got the Newcastle and Durham. Durham desperately need a win as well. They've had a pretty hard run of games coming up. So they need that game as well, because it could very much well be Sterling.
Yeah.
It could be the three of them in that conversation, depending how Sterling could swing it around.
Yeah.
So with that, it's week 5 time. I'm going to read about. I've got a few ones that I've highlighted that people. If other people want to pipe up, you can do. Week 5. So in the Prem, this is the big one as far as I'm concerned. Leeds Beckett versus Nottingham. The UE Bullets versus Birmingham. Stirling versus Durham. Cardiff versus SGS in Div 1. Sussex, Portsmouth. Essex, Kent. LJMU, Sheffield, Hallam, QMBL, Brunel, Essex, Bristol, Sheffield, MMU, Royal Holloway, Hertfordshire, Northumbria, Glasgow, Loughborough, NTU, Staffordshire, Warwick, and in Div 2, Canterbury versus Greenwich, UCLan, Bangor, City versus KCL, Solent, OBU, Brighton versus Winchester, Derby versus ARU, Leicester versus Cambridge, Lancaster versus York St John, Sunderland versus Aberdeen, UWS versus Heriot Watt, Aberystwyth versus Worcester, Liverpool versus York, and Lincoln versus Nottingham.
I'll tell you, the two teams that I feel the most sorry for out of Britball, poor Cambridge. You got to travel so far for some of these games.
I feel for them, and Tebbs is going to hate me here. I feel for Aber being put in that South Division the way that it's been redrawn.
Yeah.
Why do you hate me? It's not my fault.
I don't hate you. I'm gonna big up Aber, and I know they don't like you. So
no, that's not true anymore. That's not true.
Do you mean Tirana Aberystwyth?
Yes.
Yeah.
No, genuinely, I've got no beef with Aber anymore, and I don't think Aber have got any beef with me. So
no, I feel for them though.
I mean, I don't know how long.
Sensible to go. Some more sensible way to go with that.
Like, I don't know how long that drive was for them to get to Gloucestershire. But I remember we were sat in the pub and I asked someone, do you think they're home yet? And they're like, no, probably not.
For the record, Sunderland to Aberdeen, same with Aberdeen and Teesside, is probably 6+ hours.
And the rest. And the rest.
Yeah, in a bus. Yeah, you're looking at 6 hours of a 2-hour game. That's
what? I genuinely feel bad about complaining getting a coach to Essex.
Anyone would complain going to Essex. Let's be honest.
I'd end up probably coaching on the phone.
We have 700 miles of traveling in the next 3 weeks.
That's disgusting.
This is one of the things, right? In terms of an SU budget,
that's pretty hefty.
I mean, from us, like we don't have enough of a transport. Well, when I say we, Brunel didn't have enough transport in terms of like, we had to wiggle things around to be able to go and do a preseason scrimmage, and one of those games is Imperial, which is round the corner. It's like we could get public transport to the game and it would be 15 minutes from our home field. So you cancel out a game, and then we've got Queen Mary, which is South London, Kent, and then Essex. Those 3 games, it's only 3 coaches, and we don't have enough for a preseason scrimmage. So
Yeah.
for teams that
Our division's awful for it. Aberdeen, the smallest drive for Aberdeen is to us, and that's 2.5 hours in a car.
Yeah.
That's their
So you're
local
looking,
game.
you're looking 2 3/4 to 3 on a coach, depending on the squad size as well, depending on the size of the coach.
Yeah.
You've also got
fair
the driving time limit for the driver as well.
Yeah.
It's mental. Yeah.
It's the reason we saw it last year. Like even aside like Sterling make the Prem playoffs and then decide that the
It was cheaper to pay the fine
from
the
Bucks
travel.
was cheaper because the travel was going to be ridiculous. Because they would have had to either go down the day before and get put up in halls, which they'd have had to pay for, or they'd have had to go down. I think they'd have to leave at about 3 a.m. to make the kickoff time.
Yeah.
By the time it was all said and done to get down to UE, so it's like you understand it from an SU and from a purely financial standpoint. You do understand it.
Yeah, completely. And I think it's one of those things that it's sad to see, but again, like that's at the top flight. So you can just imagine like the difficult side of things without, like a backing of the SU, or why are we spending this much money for you to travel? Like it's eye-opening, isn't it?
Here's
a
question for you for everybody. Do you I'm back.
Yeah, you're back.
Do you think costs should be split between teams for playoff wins or for playoff games? Because essentially it boils down to record and then bits of luck in terms of how many points you've scored.
I think it's definitely needs to be something that's looked at, and I think it's hard to say. I mean, as you say, for example, like Bristol with UE, you've got, Bristol and Stirling. You're traveling the length of the bloody country for a game. There's got to be a way that Bucks can look at it and say, that's not fair. Yes, because they're north and against the south team, but there has to be a way that it's like you do a playoff day. Say for example, you meet in the middle, and sorry, but Nottingham is kind of in the middle of it. You could do a day of football, of playoff games.
Yeah. Neutral fields are always interesting too, but then the other flip side of that is
they're going to be scouting your game as well. Yeah.
This is where I think, though, that's where you need the attention on the sport. Stuff like sort of super, you never hear about that being a problem in sort of Super Rugby and your other sports. I think if the sport had more attention, then we wouldn't even be talking about that. It wouldn't be
also a thing, like all of the Super League Rugby, that every single game is streamed.
Yeah.
So it is that it would be logical, wouldn't it, for there to be relative help in the sense where Bristol would probably, I could imagine UE not being too happy about having to pay to go up to Stirling, and travel up to Stirling for the exact same reason. So I think regardless of what shoe is on what foot, there needs to be something where it's a meet in the middle kind of thing.
Ninth codes have none of that. No, he's living in Cornwall and had playoff games in Norwich and Glasgow. It's football, but I feel like it's sort of different just because the SU is subsidising it.
It is football, but surely you'd rather have the games played and not end up with clubs with absolute zero bank accounts and bankrupting themselves to try and play a game, or forfeiting a playoff game because it's cheaper
to pay the fine than it is to travel.
Yeah, like that's
not football.
No, it's not.
I think it's bad. I think that's why you're seeing. I know probably Tebbs will be the only person able to pay testament to this, but in our division, I think you must have maybe 7+ walkovers a year, if not more, because teams just get to the point where
more than that,
it's not worth. You get teams sort of in our league 15, 17 players, and they're trying to justify 6-hour travel. Not a chance. Like
UWS just they point blank refuse to travel outside of Scotland because financially they can't make it work. And then and then that cuts down a team's schedule, and it makes the sport less attractive.
Yeah, you see it all the time. It's the same
when it's already a difficult sell when you're only playing 8 games, and you look at, and I obviously it's a high contact sport, but what rugby teams play at least 14, 15 games in a full season, surely. Like, don't quote me on it, but it's definitely going to be more than the 6, 7 games you get in a Div 2 season.
And it's also, I mean, even in terms of kind of like Brunel, sorry, Dylan. Like even in terms of how, like with Brunel, like you used to look at it, and I remember when I'd had conversations, like we need, there was one winter where our kit container, the lock had frozen and broken out and basically fell out. And the weather was getting in, and it's an airtight weather container that as soon as the weather gets in, it starts to destroy. Sorry, I got distracted. I was reading the thing that popped up.
Nathan, for those who kind of it says better sponsorship. If you're a 10-0, why should you travel and play a 6 and why should you? I presume that means why should you pay to play? Because like a 10-0 team wouldn't travel to a 6-4 team. If you're 10-0, you end up you're going to have a home game. But surely it's better for the sport to have that game played than for a team to look at it and go, well, we're going to get gubbed anyway. We're going to get hammered. It's going to cost us more to go and get hammered than it is to pay the fine, and we save ourselves for the next year rather than causing us to go bankrupt.
Yeah, it's a good point from John as well. It is a university issue in a certain extent, but it's also relative. It's what I was just about to say is, at Brunel there's 7 men's football teams. There's 7 different teams that compete in Bucks leagues. But if you think about it, they're paying for the travel to and from wherever they're playing, Chichester, Southampton, and that kind of thing. But it's relative cost, because realistically, what equipment do they need? They have their sports kit already provided by the uni, footballs and coaching. So they have more. And
lots of unis these days, it's the same with rugby. Lots of unis have agreements, especially kind of sports unis. They have agreements with local teams that end up funding. Like our entire sports complex was paid for by Sale Sharks. Like that's the way it works. So we're a minority sport. We're a minority.
I know
sport.
Teesside, for example, they had 17 players on the team sheet for Aberdeen in that game that got cancelled last weekend. If you're as a uni, they're already paying a subsidised fee to join. It's not like a Premiership adult team where they're going to be paying a couple £100. It'll be, I don't know, I think ours is 80. Like, for a uni, it just doesn't make sense to be sending them to Aberdeen, Edinburgh, and Glasgow.
I'm not, but Nathan. I'm also not trying to take like rip you to shribbins. I'm just I feel like as a Britball community, we need to build the sport up. Like we are still, yes, we are one of the fastest growing sports.
Yeah, well, that's why events like Explosion are good.
Yeah, and that is exactly because and also if you look at the national championship game, that was the most watched Bucks stream that was out of the Super League and everything. The American football between UE and Notts was the most watched stream out of that whole channel. So I mean, it's always that big thing that kind of elevates it. But Bucks, if Bucks help American football financially, they then have to do that with every single other sport, and it then becomes completely unviable.
Bucks Red Zone would be the funniest thing.
Oh mate,
possibly in the world.
My bloodstream.
Oh god,
intravenous.
Mate,
we've had a dog run on the field, and
who's the geezer who does it? Yeah, proper Red
Scott
Zone.
Hansen.
Mate, just me, Scott Hansen in it. Oh,
No, just
fucking
no.
Exeter have
So
shit
much
house the
So
goal.
much no.
You bastard.
So
Oh,
much
We've had
no.
our first
But-
PAT of the day,
Yeah.
third
But
quarter.
that,
Oh, it's
Yeah.
a safe one, not a surprise.
Think,
you'd have,
oh
you'd have
god,
to, let's be honest, you'd have to do it over 2 days because you'd have to do it on the Saturday for some of them and Sunday too.
yeah,
There's so many highlights.
yeah.
Mate, get one instead of like red zone. Just it's all low lights. Oh, there's another fight. Well, someone from Bath Spa has just been ejected. No,
Fourth turnover on the
Another
same play.
flag has been put in the middle of the field.
But yeah, to go back to the point, LGMU, like not LGMU, fucking my head coach is texting me too, so I've just word vomited in the middle of the podcast. But so apologies. Bucks, they've got so many sports. It can't come from Bucks. I think it has to come from the unis themselves, or it has to come from BAFA. Seeing the Bucks Uniball as it's a feeder league. We try and place, I don't know about you, Seb, but obviously kind of you're not involved in it now, but when I was at, where we were, come the off season, we tried to give as many people chances to play senior ball, to grow the sport, to get more involved. So they play summer ball there and then they come to us.
Yeah. And I think also,
that's the thing.
this is when you actually think of it, if you take that step back and you look at it and it's like, right, perfect. Like, I mean, I was in a position where I was kind of playing as well. So I was around the under 19s Blitz last year. We have when you get players that go and play senior ball, especially if it's a program that has that kind of under 19 program, it not only are you feeding a senior team, but it creates a university presence for the under 19 squad as well. It gives players that may not want to play because of an injury, they can join an under 19s program and coach because they're still being around football. They're able to. It's what happened this year with a couple of our players. One guy had a really bad head injury last season, and he had to take a decent amount of time out, and he got cleared and everything like that. But he actually spent the summer coaching and got in and working out in the gym. So he's still around football, but it's what that does. It does give it. And I mean, even if you look at what Bucks have done for the sport this year, in terms of like the stuff that Tonye's put together, I think is absolutely fantastic. Allowing one person from each team to get the level 1 kind of funded. Like they're funding for coaches to get their referee qualification, and that's something that's never happened in our sport at Uniball level, and it's something that Bucks and BAFA are working on together.
Yeah.
So I think we kind of have to take what they can give us in a sense, and be happy with what that is. I mean, Brunel was in it. The biggest issue that we had in terms of cost, and it's why we had to make our own way to the Imperial game. We weren't even able to really. The uni gives us a minibus so we can transport the kit, but sport at Brunel was free. You only pay your union membership, but you don't pay a fee to join the club. So you could join, theoretically, you could join any sport. And, like Dylan could join rugby, he could join basketball, American football, squash, and he wouldn't pay a single joining fee on any of that once he had his, so it's absolutely fantastic because people can take part in whatever they want. And there's no real financial thing where it's like, I've paid this much money, I'm going to just stick at it. If they don't like it, they go. But it also, that money that you would get, our subs used to be £150, but that would give you a lid and shoulder pads.
Yeah.
And also 50% of it would go back into the club's budget. So that's something that we lose that would help with travel costs and things like that, where that money could be split elsewhere. So I think,
yeah, I don't know, Tebbs, do you want to read the comment out, because it actually makes me quite angry. So
Surely if funding is an issue, just get your recruitment better. We've never had an issue with travel because we have 90 players. Not funding from Bucks, from Michael.
Michael, most respect in the world, fuck off. Like there are maybe 3 or 4 programs in the country that have 90 players. Like maybe.
I spent freshest fair walking around with an American flag flirting with big blokes, and it got me nowhere.
Yeah.
With like
We did the same. Like we did the same. Like at Freshers Fair, coaches turn up, players turn up. We got RSU got angry at us because we had too many people on our stall because they were still having some form of COVID regulation. So it was
no one likes rugby. No one likes rugby in Scotland. Never mind like trying to move them from there into American football. We've been walking around trying the best, but that's true.
Yeah, no, he's 100%.
Yeah, absolutely.
And I think 100%. And it's
Tebbs,
just that extra reps, isn't it?
Huh?
Tebbs, you're up. Reading
Oh, to read it?
That's what you've been reduced to here. Like this is just
uni teams need to send players to senior. Uni teams that send players to senior league and under 19s improve so much. I see the difference when reffing from Nathan Coates.
Yeah, it does. Like it's a different league. It's a different sport completely.
Yeah.
And when you can play around guys, and you know when you get to senior league under 19s, there's more games, there's better players. You get that benefit, and you get just the extra benefit. Guys who don't play senior ball, they go away in January, February after the season, and they don't pick up American football until September,
yeah, or October for some universities.
For some,
as well.
Yeah, exactly.
And 100%. And I remember my first experience. You know, like I went straight into senior ball because the under 19s kind of had 3 players. And I remember the first game, you know, I caught a slant over the middle of the field and I got absolutely, I folded into 4, you know, and I'm on the.
Did you hold on to the ball?
Oh yeah, I held on to the ball, but my helmet came off. And I got up and I looked at the guy, you know, and he shook my hand after the game. And I was like, this guy's got 4 kids in a mortgage, you know, like, and I'm 8 and like 19, all like 65 kilos of me back then, you know, like I was not ready for that. But it's just the level of exposure, you know, like I went from playing, I through my university career, I went 5 years at uni and I did 5 senior seasons alongside it back to back. So like that kind of, it skyrockets your own personal development, and which is why I kind of went into coaching, because it destroyed my body. But but I mean, I just want to go back to Michael's point, you know, it's just so ignorant. And
it's not even that it's ignorant.
It's not just a thing of get better recruitment. It doesn't work like that. There is so many different things. I mean, I don't know what program he's a part of. There's only one program that I could probably ring off my head that has 90 players, and that, by the sounds of things, would be Loughborough, because Loughborough have got a massive squad.
But also
Loughborough is Loughborough,
and they refuse to split into 2 teams.
Yeah, and that's also true. You know, like Portsmouth do have that, and Portsmouth have recruited in fantastic ways, because Portsmouth also have that relationship with the SU where it's a mutually beneficial environment. It's not like, you know, that we're butting heads with the SU at every single turn. It's a beneficial, you know, they know what they need to do to get players in and how they can get scholars in and stuff. Fair play. You know, Portsmouth do have that. And I'd love to know if they, you know, if it's a traveling, you know, squad, are they taking all 90 players, or are they having like a 55-man roster, or, you know, things like that. But I think just saying get better at recruiting for teams that aren't necessarily in a position to be able to offer prospect days like Notts and Leeds and Loughborough do, and, you know, like if you're not able to, if your university doesn't track quotas on improving, you know, like international students in like the North Americas, Asia and things like that, you know, you're not going to be in a position to bring in the players that are going to benefit your team. Or if the Freshers Fair is your sole purpose of recruitment, it's a gamble, you know, like it's who decides to turn up on that day. It's whoever went out on 40, you know, on the Monday night and got absolutely shit-faced and can't come to the Freshers Fair because he's, you know, even when I was on the stall, you know, I missed half of it, you know. But it's things like that, you know. There's so many different factors. If that's your sole income, and when I say income, I mean influx of players, it's a very different story. But
We
then,
are-
so like Harrison from Portsmouth, they take 48 to an away day. So even then, regardless of funding, it's that point just reinforces what we're saying in that sense. How logistically, how much could you afford to take all 90 players to a game?
Yeah, everybody in this just now talking is sort of relatively actively involved in Uniball or has been recently. How many times have you heard the phrase "the SU are being dicks"?
All the time, and it's something I could probably talk on for hours. To be honest,
yeah, it's like that's just like some uni SUs are brilliant, some are awful. And that's just the way that's the nature of the beast. That's the way that it works. Some SUs are more focused on core sports or on other things. It just that's what happens. We can sit here arguing amongst ourselves about, and slagging each other off, or we can go, right, how as a collective do we go and slap SUs in the face and go, we're here to stay, we're not doing anything for help.
Yeah. And like the biggest thing, like, I mean, I spoke at the Bucks conference that was kind of hosted about this, because I mean, with Brunel, like it was always, when I was a player, it was always the SU hates us, we never get what we want. And when I kind of became chairman, and then as I kind of transitioned into coaching, it really kind of changed. Like, my opinion on it was, we get the most funding, like realistically, behind one other sport, but instead of thinking, you can complain about the relationship with an SU, but if you work on it and like, right, how can we create a beneficial kind of partnership, it makes it a little bit easier. And 9 times out of 10, it's because like coaches and committee don't work together with the SU, and it just spirals, because if you're not willing to work on the relationship to benefit the club and benefit the team and the players, it's never going to get better.
It's mad how, like, I just wanted to talk about Leeds versus Nottingham, but we've been on this for about 15 minutes. So
we have, but it was a good. I mean,
No,
to
it was
be
good.
honest, there was definite like nibbles. Like one comment comes up and we're all just
Definite
there like,
nibbles.
you fucking.
No,
But,
Colin's had to go and
Leeds and Notts is going to be a great game. I think there's
Yeah.
there's a few great games. I for one, I think the Queen Mary and Brunel game is going to be a great game, because the head coach for Queen Mary were there, and it could very well be a shootout. So there's a lot of good games this weekend, and I'm going to enjoy looking at the score feed.
For me, there's 2 in Div 2 that are very, very interesting, because they have that sort of air of promotional implications on them, and that is obviously Liverpool versus York, but also City Wolfpack versus KCL Regents. Both are 2-0, and it's strange. KCL are just, I think KCL are
played Greenwich yet?
Yes, they beat them 11-0.
Okay.
That's the
I
thing,
guess.
That's the thing. City haven't played
KCL.
No, Greenwich yet.
Greenwich are pretty good.
And that's it. That's the thing. That's why KCL gets ranked high. That's how it works.
I think they get ranked high just because their social media is pretty good.
Well, you'd be wrong, wouldn't you? You'd be wrong.
Their social media has me cracking up. I can't.
What?
Hi.
Oh, there he is.
Yeah, there he is.
Hello.
Just been walking around the house punching drywall because of Michael's comment.
Yeah, pretty much. Like that's just like there's a few good holes in my hallway now.
Huh? Why don't you leave me alone, coach? I don't know anything about.
Can you reply to training, Tebbs? Are you going to do it? Or are you going to not?
Huh? Well, I don't know. I'll see how I feel. Why am I getting called out on live, bro? Don't call me out on live, coach.
Bench him. Bench him.
Tebbs gonna get gases on the training.
Well, they're gonna make
he's
me
gonna
run,
get the Ronald Ollie roll the length of the field.
No, I won't go there.
One way to sort the grass out, right?
Oh God! If only snapping balls was easy work. But yeah,
I'm just happy that you sorted the snaps out.
I did. Didn't I, coach, who I don't play for? Didn't I sort the snaps out? Tell him. But realistically, that's all I've got. Nothing from Div 1 really excites me that much. Brunel versus QMBL is probably the one. Loughborough, Nottingham, Trent again.
That's just
That's about it.
It could be a juicy one, but it
Yeah.
seems like Loughborough are kind of flying on, kind of everything. I'm excited to see what Kent do against Essex. That's what I'm really because Kent could have an opportunity here where they go from being bottom to top in a week.
That's what you need. And to be fair, like Kent Falcons were one of the few teams last year who didn't like me, and so it's good to see you doing well, Kent. But yeah, so with that,
I will, like I said, again, this is more my division, but we've got Sabres this week who are 0-1. It will be a pretty big litmus test and a kind of a indication of whether it is going to be a melee in Northern 1 or whether one team, whether that be Sheffield, whether that be us, end up kind of in the fight for survival.
Yeah.
He's trying to get the hype posts out there. The fight for survival.
Yeah.
That's it. But just get more people down.
Yeah, you do what you can.
Do it. Yeah, just get someone.
I told Michael to shut the fuck up, and I'll tell you to do the same. So.
Oh, scrap it.
Wow, I remember my first beer as well, Connor.
Yeah, I know, right? when that comment was coming out eventually, wasn't it?
As soon as I saw you pick up that can, easy.
Yeah.
It's time. So with that, it's the last segment. It's we all do a pick, and let's see if we can do it quickly this week. Last week, just don't give me any comments. Just who's going to win? Because I'm actually going to make a graphic out of your two's pick this week. Maybe Seb's as well. We'll see how I feel.
Do it.
Because I'm sick of being the only one that gets shouted at by Hull Sharks. Damn Hull Sharks.
All right,
giving me grief.
Who are Hull playing this week?
They've not got a game.
They'll probably lose.
And also, I think they gave me grief because they were like, oh, it's the only week you didn't pick Hull Sharks not to win. It's like, we didn't have a game.
Leave
it out.
Unless you want to walk over from a bye week,
Leave it out. So, Leeds, Beckett versus Nottingham. Leeds, Beckett.
I'm going Leeds, Beckett.
Not.
Good. Bullets, Birmingham. Bullets.
Yeah.
Bullets.
Sterling, Durham.
I'm the Klansman. I'm going Sterling.
Gonna die on the Scotland Hill Klansman.
Yeah. Brave.
Durham.
Cardiff versus SGS. SGS.
That's
Don't even have to say that one. Pick Cardiff, Connor. If you're in the next cut, I'd make you pick Cardiff. Sussex versus Portsmouth. Portsmouth. Oh no, sorry. Oh no, it's the right page. No. Essex versus Kent.
You know what, Kent. I just want to see it.
Essex.
Oh, at the same time, LJMU versus Hallam.
Hallam.
I think Hallam. Yeah.
Hallam. QMBL versus Brunel. You don't have to answer this one if you don't want to, Seb. Brunel. Exeter versus Bristol.
That's going to be a game.
Bristol.
I have to go for my guy, Exeter.
Yeah, I'm going to stay with Seb and go Exeter.
Bristol.
The worst part is that I like Exeter Demons, but I keep picking against them and they don't like me now. But I do like Exeter, but Bristol are they're good. Hallam versus MMU. Connie, you don't have to answer this one. No, sorry, Sheffield versus MMU. MMU.
Picked right. Well done. Congratulations.
Royal Holloway versus Hertfordshire.
Hertfordshire.
Yeah, Hertfordshire.
Northumbria versus Glasgow. Northumbria.
Northumbria.
Yeah, I'm gonna stick there.
Where is it?
What a question?
It's in Northumbria.
Where is? Oh
There you
yeah,
go.
Did not expect that trim, Seb. I don't know why.
No, neither did I.
It's got hat hair though. To be
It's
honest.
I
fine.
just-
It's fine.
No,
Like,
no,
I
no.
don't
I just didn't. I don't know what I
you were
expected.
complaining. I don't know what you were complaining about. That's
No,
fine.
it's not a mullet, right? Right, Tebbs.
Grow up. Yeah, Loughborough versus NTU. Loughborough.
Loughborough. I don't see NTU stopping the Henry, to be honest.
Loughborough.
I'm gonna.
Connor,
I'm
what
gonna,
do you say,
I'm
Loughborough?
on a limb. No, I'm gonna go out on a limb and go into you.
Very nice.
Nice.
Staffordshire versus Warwick. Warwick.
Warwick.
Warwick.
Staffordshire, are fish out of water.
That's
year.
what I've been
Yeah.
saying. I'm sorry
was
for
wrong
just
last
to be
week.
right.
I was
No,
wrong.
just
I was very
recruitment
wrong last
really,
week.
really hurt them.
Yeah.
It's a shame.
Okay, in Div 2, Canterbury, Greenwich.
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 Yeah. Greenwich.
UClan versus Bangor. UClan.
Yeah.
Plan.
You can't.
City versus KCL. KCL.
I'm gonna go for an upset with City.
KCL.
KCL.
I just think it'll be awkward. I love it.
Are we actually convinced about Hearts after a last-minute winner against Holloway last time?
Every
Why
single
not?
game,
Plymouth. Well, oh, God, which one? Portsmouth.
every single
didn't they?
game I've watched Hertfordshire against Royal Holloway have either not scored or have scored 6 points. So no. And Hearts
Yeah.
have just come off of a game where they've just put up 44. And no.
Something clicked for them in that game. Like coaches, like from a
Yeah.
coach's point of view, you look at that score and go, something clicked.
Okay, Solent versus Oxford Brooks. This one I don't know. This one I really don't know.
I'll say OBU.
I'm
have
tempted to
no
say
idea.
OBU as well.
I'm going with Solent.
Brighton versus Winchester. Brighton.
Brighton, but it'll be a bit of a tough one. They had some injuries in their last game.
Winchester.
That's
Yeah,
if that
I'm gonna-
game takes place, because
True.
we don't know
Winchester.
about
Yeah,
Winchester.
Yeah.
Uh,
I go Brighton,
this-
but
Okay, Derby versus ARU.
I'm going for the Siege.
You're going for the Siege
Oh,
against
I
Derby.
love it. I
It
love
doesn't
it.
matter. It doesn't matter. I mean,
love it.
Derby.
I've got to make this a graphic now just for that.
wait,
Fucking hell.
wait, where is the game?
Derby.
Is it at Derby?
Yeah.
Siege, all the way.
Derby.
Mate, I'll die by the Siege. Yeah.
I'll die
I
by
want
the
to
Siege.
see them do well. I want to see them do well. They deserve it. So I'm gonna go for Siege.
Connor, Dylan.
As much as I love his enthusiasm,
Derby.
no.
Derby.
Derby.
Okay. Leicester versus Cambridge. Cambridge.
That's a good game. I'm gonna say
Leicester.
Cambridge.
Yeah, I like Cambridge.
Lancaster versus York St John. Lancaster.
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 Agree. Just going with
Yeah.
Tebbs because he's a pretty good pundit, you know.
Not according to everyone, apparently. No, that's not true. Sunderland versus Aberdeen. Aberdeen.
Yeah, I feel like as much as I think that the week off will hurt Aberdeen, but I think they will do it.
I don't know about that. I might want to change that actually.
I'm waiting for
No,
Dylan.
we'll
What's
stick-
Dylan gonna say?
Yeah, you don't have to say anything, Dylan. Yeah, sorry.
Aberdeen.
Aberdeen. Oh, he said Aberdeen.
Okay.
He said Aberdeen.
All right,
okay.
I'll go with Aberdeen.
And then
Okay, you
shot
don't
to
have to answer this
Sunderland
one,
with
Dylan.
47 people.
You don't have to answer this one, Dylan. UWS versus Heriot Watt.
Oklahoma State.
Yeah.
Oklahoma. Oh, I will go to Oklahoma State. Okay.
How
Yeah. Can you actually put that in the graphic? I also back Oklahoma State.
If you really want me to, if you really want me to,
Everyone-
no one else.
I'll go Harry at what for that?
I wouldn't actually be too like happy about playing for OSU this year. They have been dog shit.
Now this is the one. No, this is one. Aberystwyth versus Worcester. Aberystwyth.
Royals Worcester.
Yeah,
Aberystwyth.
Worcester. Yeah,
Yeah,
gonna go for
unfortunately.
the Royals, I think.
Yeah. Well, where is it? That's another point. Actually, where is it?
Dylan.
Oh,
No.
Aberystwyth.
I was answering him. I'm going with Worcester. He's.
it's no.
I'm not getting that
Where
wrong.
is it? Where is it?
Yeah. No, I was saying it's in Aberystwyth, but I think Worcester will win.
No,
I
that's
don't
the
know,
first.
because that's a journey. I
trip.
don't know.
That trip.
I'm gonna change my answer to Aberystwyth. Yeah.
I'm gonna go with Aber.
Okay, Liverpool versus York. Actually, no. Actually, stop. No, not that one. First, we'll end on that one. Lincoln versus Nottingham. I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry to the Lincoln Colonials, but
Nottingham.
to be fair, I know for a fact that none of them watch anyway. It's like they're the only squad. They're the only squad that like literally couldn't give less of a fuck about this. Like anything that I do, they couldn't give less of a fuck about it. So, Nottingham. Sorry, boys.
Yeah, Nottingham.
Yeah, nuts.
Yeah,
Dylan?
nuts. Sorry.
Okay, then we're going to end on the big game from Div 2 this week. Liverpool Raptors versus York Centurions. It's a difficult one. It's the worst one of the day because I don't know.
Again, where is it? Is it GMO or is it at 22?
Liverpool.
My guy.
It's
Find
in
out for me. This,
To Liverpool.
it's in Liverpool.
I can't pick against them. I've got to go with York.
Oh. I really thought you were going to say Liverpool, huh?
We used to play them, didn't he?
Yeah, I'm gonna back it.
Not that. Nah, I think Liverpool.
I'm just going off Liverpool's track record. I'm gonna go York.
That's it. Is that I'm sort of edging on the fucking hell, Connor. Oh god, that second B has gone straight to his head. Yeah, I'm sort of backing Seb here. It's such sweet sorrow for the Raptors.
It won't be that game. It'll be something. It'll be like UClan. Or even Bradford. Who knows? But I don't think it's York. I reckon they'll perform.
But thing is, it's the Liverpool Raptors are like the Buffalo Bills of Div 2 Uniball.
Yeah,
They
Got
just
the Vikings this week.
100% win percentage loss.
yeah, that's it, and that's why I'm so tempted.
Yeah, I think it's a case of to me. I think this is their test. Like if they do this, I think as a team, in terms of a program, you win this, you build, you grow, and I think if they do this, they'll do the whole thing. So
It's strange because what you've said there has convinced me to pick Liverpool.
I don't think they will, but I think if they do, I think they will.
So, but with that, ladies and gentlemen, hour and a half. Can you believe it? I can't wait to edit this. What a time to be alive. We've had nosebleeds. We've had weird comments. We've had a 20-minute chat about travel. But
you're going to cry on Spotify when you hear yourself breathing down the mic, Tebbs.
Oh, yeah.
You're going to be devastated. I didn't want to interrupt. Nah, it was someone was talking and it felt rude.
I might just not put it on Spotify. Fuck
No,
it.
should we band together and get you an actual headset that isn't
No,
absolutely ruined?
Do you not see this massive mic? It's because for some reason the Wi-Fi works better on. The Wi-Fi works better on my phone.
It's the first night. I didn't bring a beer. I was on my best behaviour, and then it's devastating.
Grow up, all of you. Especially you, Seb. I'm sick of seeing you.
Seb, you can come back next week.
Yeah, if you want to.
My schedule's opened up.
But with that, ladies and gentlemen, week 4 is in the books. Week 5 is now on the horizon. So anyone who is playing, good luck. Hope you stay healthy. Yeah. And just have a good time. We've got some big games. Going to be an interesting show next week. 8 o'clock.
I'm already looking forward to next week.
Yeah, it's going to be a good one. Let's talk about where. It's one of these where, like, Seb could join us, but hopefully, if all things, if he still likes us, Rob Smith, head coach of the Reading Knights, will be joining us. But with that, ladies and gentlemen, if everyone wants to say goodbye now.
Goodbye now.
Next week.
Goodbye now.
Brilliant. God, I hate you all.
Also, mate, you're off from Countdown. Not Countdown,
Huh?
University Challenge. That's the one.
What?
Oh, I should have put the clock back here. Like,
Guys, this show's like university challenged, mate. That's what we are.
Yeah, exactly right.
All right. Cool. Right. Thank you very much, everyone, for watching. Goodbye, and we'll see you next week, or on Spotify if the My Sound Mind Breathing doesn't hurt my feelings too much.